How many of you post-divorce have realized slowly and inexorably that the isolation is running much deeper and much more broadly than we ever realized it possibly could? I think probably my discussion tonight is more focused toward women of my own age than the younger set, because I'm a wreck. I look a wreck. I feel a wreck. I've been at clinicals all day, and it hasn't been that bad. It wasn't as bad as it today as it was yesterday, but I'm tired. I'm old and I'm tired. But I'd like to hear from some of you, because when you finally make the decision to call it a day and you serve the papers and you go through the nightmare of mediation and get the divorce, the whole 9 yards, and we've all been there when we're recovering from abusive marriages. I mean, we look around and we have no friends. And no offense to my friends, I had friends, but they were all hundreds of miles away. Two of them actually still are thousands of miles away. And I am finding personally that in the workforce, I feel very isolated. And it's not just because of the discussions that we've had before, like the workplace politics and the toxicity and what have you. It's a difference in attitudes. Because, let's face it, women who have been married for decades and suddenly are no longer married, at some point they're going to realize that they have been carrying the entire weight for the entire family system all that time. And I know that some of my friends look at me and they're like, oh my stars, Lord, is she ever going to get straightened out? She's all over the place. And it's not that, it's that I brainstorm. Sorry, Jasper scratching his head up against the Chromebook. I brainstorm ways to make a living. I brainstorm ways to make ends meet. I do all kinds of things. So, but what I'm finding in the, if you will, normal workforce, and I've found this in class. Class is not technically working because you're not getting paid for it, but it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same atmosphere, and I feel so isolated in class. And no offense to any of my classmates, most assuredly no offense to my instructor. She's a wonderful instructor. I have every respect for her. But having run my home very capably for decades, having raised 2 children very capably, I mean, under the circumstances I was raising them, God was so good. I was able, thank the Lord, to be a better mother than my own mother was ever able to be. And that was through no fault of her own. It was her misfortune. It was never her fault. But yeah, people who are the scapegoats in their family systems, and I'm not patting myself on the back and being swell-headed or anything like that, but scapegoats tend to be extremely capable people. And they also tend to be extremely resilient. And they're really good at following the rules. Because, let's face it, we're laboring under the head of that family system, whoever that particular person might be, and we're having to follow that person's rules. And yeah, a lot of times our moral and spiritual values, I mean, this was one of the biggest clashes between the husband and me, the spiritual values, the moral values, that we were just never on the same page. And I was constantly in conflict with him. So I'm not saying that we blindly obey, but we do have what we used to refer to as a healthy respect for authority. And people my age, we can remember when you didn't talk back to your elders. I mean, I can remember smarting off to my mother one time, and I was sitting at the dining room table, and she backhanded me, and I landed flat on my back on the kitchen floor. And so you just didn't do that. I mean, you were expected to have respect for certain sectors of the population. Your parents were primary among them. And if you did not show that respect, you were going to have serious consequences. And this is where I feel so incredibly isolated. Because oddly enough, there is a member of my class who's probably no more than a decade younger than I am. And this woman finds it almost impossible to follow orders. That's what the instructor is there for. The instructor is there to instruct us. Instructing is another way of giving orders. You know, I'm telling you how to do this, and I expect you to do it the way I tell you to do it. And it just boggles my mind that you know, I'm in a community of people who have no respect for authority, and they have no conception of, okay, this person is standing there telling me what to do because this person has my best interests at heart. That's why this person does what she does. She loves teaching. She loves to enhance other people's lives. She loves to see them grow. She loves to cultivate that soil. They have neither the concept to acknowledge that, and they certainly have no respect for it. And I myself, I'm not a crabby person. I don't go out looking for trouble. But one of the younger members of the class, Gen Z, and I'm not big on Gen Z. I'm just going to be perfectly transparent and confide that. I do not like Gen Z. And this is one of the reasons. I'll give you a good example. Today, there was an occurrence with one of my much younger classmates and myself, and I was actually, how shall I say it? I was helping her get something done as per the instructor's request. And for no apparent reason, this girl, she goes, "Shh, be quiet, stop talking so loud." And she's talking way louder than I was talking. And I'm like, well, where did this come from? And I looked at her, and I guess my gaze said it all. And she's like, "Well, I'm not trying to be rude." And I'm standing there thinking, well, then don't be rude. If you're not trying to be rude, why are you rude? And I guess, again, my look conveyed my thoughts. And it was really funny. She kind of backed away from me, and I just stood there. I didn't make a move. I didn't say anything. And she kind of backed away, and she goes, "Really? I wasn't trying to be rude." And I just nodded my head, and I said, your generation really needs to learn the concept of respecting your elders. I said, I'm old enough to be your grandmother, and you have no business talking to me like that. I did nothing to provoke you, nothing whatever. And, I think she said well, I'm sorry, but like I said, I wasn't being rude. Well, that's not an apology. That's not an apology. And so I just finally left. I just left. I did what the instructor asked me to do, and I departed. So I find myself very isolated because I was brought up, I've probably said this in several videos, I was brought up by depression kids, one of whom was a World War II vet, and this man raised me with a very profound respect for authority. I mean, he fought in the Pacific Highlands. He starved to death for his country. I mean, they said he was almost 6 feet tall, and they said that when he came back from the war, his skin was just kind of hanging off of his bones. And, you know, I had a grave respect. And you know, there was an episode in my childhood where we were walking down the streets of San Antonio near the air base. Sorry, I cannot remember the name of the air base, but anyway, there was an officer in full regalia walking ahead of us, and I don't know why he was in regalia. I assume he had just left some kind of important function, but he did not have a military walk. As a matter of fact, his walk was very awkward. And as I look back, I assume that maybe one of his legs was a little shorter than the other or something. And I'm 9 years old, and I said something not very kind about the man's walk. And boy, my uncle whirled me around. He was holding me by the hand. We were walking down the street, and he whirled me around, and he knelt down in front of me, and he said, "Don't you ever, ever, ever let me hear you talk about a veteran like that again." He said, "That man has risked his life time and time again so that you can walk down the street making fun of the way he walks." And I never forgot that. I never forgot that. And with that particular uncle, he wasn't going to let you forget it. And so, you know, I just come from this whole different generation of people that I was brought up on the King James Bible. I was brought up on, you know, God is the supreme being, and you know, if you're bought by his blood and saved by his grace, then he expects your life to show it. He expects your life to illustrate clearly in every aspect that he saved you. And these, you know, I find a society of people out there that just have no concept. You start talking to them about this, and they look at you like you're from another planet. You know, I mean, that girl really couldn't figure out why I got mad at her. And so if any of you people my age who have gone through divorce and are already feeling so isolated, and you know, you're plunged out there into society, and you're finding that you're more isolated because of these differences in values, I would love to hear about it, because I'm wondering if it's as much a problem for other people as it is for me. I confided everything that happened today with my instructor, and I told her, I said, yeah, I found myself asking, can't you get along with anybody? I mean, do you have trouble with everybody? And, you know, thank the Lord, she didn't think that I was the problem. I mean, to me, she's just a kid, but she's not just a kid. She's old enough to know bad behavior when she sees it. And, you know, she did not think I was the problem. But that's kind of the way I felt. I felt like, Lord, am I the only person on the face of the earth with the standards that I have? I have a dear friend, the only one, well, excuse me, one of three that live close by. And she told me that a couple of years ago. She said, sometimes, Wendy, I feel like I'm the only person on the face of the earth that believes what I believe. And yeah, I just like to hear from people, because it's a real problem. It's very lonely. It's very isolating. It's very discouraging. I'm going to be honest. I think that when I have bouts of depression, that's probably one of the biggest reasons why. I just feel like there's nobody that I can really relate to. So, I'm going to keep it short and sweet, or not so sweet. But truly, I want to hear from people. I want to know if I'm the only one. And I think about Elijah a lot. And don't get me wrong, I'm not putting my faith on the same plane as Elijah's. But I do wonder that sometimes. I go to God and I'm like, I think I know a little bit of how Elijah felt. So, how many did God say that he had reserved unto himself? I can't remember exactly. Was it 144,000 that have not bowed the knee to Baal? So I'd love to hear from one of you, 144,000. I really would. I love you all. I'm going to go because I look horrible and I feel worse. But let me hear. Thank you all so much.